Hello, welcome to Mastermind Authors College. My name is Dr. Clemens, and I'm your author, leadership, and life coach. So today we are going to talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism. We would look at how to avoid plagiarism, reasons you shouldn't plagiarize, and we would define what plagiarism is. We would also talk about how to use stories, links, and quotes in book writing. So let's get started. Plagiarism, what is it and why is it important? Why are we talking about plagiarism? I would like us to begin by taking a definition of what plagiarism is. So plagiarism is the representation of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions as one's own original work. So when you take an idea or the language or the thoughts of another author and use it in your book as if it was your original idea, you have just plagiarized another person's work. Now, to plagiarize, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own. Or it is to use another's production, another person's work, without crediting the source. So to plagiarize means to steal. Now, I would like you to know that as an author or as a writer, you will always, at some point, need the ideas of other authors. You would need the thoughts of other authors. Why? Because most times, authors don't write anything new. They don't write about anything new. Almost everything you want to write about, somebody has written about it before. If you want to write a book about how to become successful or how to become financially independent or how to have a successful marriage, whatever it is you want to write about, someone else has written about it before. So there is nothing new under the sun, really. What does that mean? It means that as an author, you will most times read other people's books or thoughts or ideas on the topic you want to write about, because everything you know today you learned from somewhere or from someone. Nobody was born with uh, any form of knowledge. When you were born into this world, you came, your mind was a tabula rasa. It was empty. There was nothing there. And so you began to learn. So almost everything you know today, you learn from somewhere. So it means that there is nothing you want to write that somebody hasn't written about before. However, you don't just copy somebody's ideas or somebody's thoughts and put them in your book and pretend as if those thoughts were originally yours. If you do that, that is plagiarism. So, why should we prevent Plagiarism. Even though I said that you would need other people, you would need people's ideas, you would need to have read books, other books concerning the subject you want to write about. But at the same time, you don't need to copy people word for word. You don't need to copy other authors word for word. If you want to copy other authors word for word, you must try as much as possible to reference them, which I'm going to teach you how to do that today. So, how do we, or what are the what are the reasons? Why should we avoid plagiarism? You need to avoid plagiarism because plagiarism deprives you of your originality. So, what is originality? Originality is the ability to think independently and creatively. It is your uniqueness of thoughts or ideas. Now, is this not contradictory? I just said a few minutes ago that there is nothing you want to write about that someone else hasn't already written about before. And here I'm defining originality as your ability to think independently and creatively, and as your uniqueness of thoughts or ideas. So, what do I mean? How do we balance these two? Now, even though people have written about what you want to write about, 5 ways to become successful, 10 ways to have a successful marriage, 15 ways to become an entrepreneur, and all of that, people have written about them before. That is true. But you can still write about these topics, but creatively. You can still write about anything you want to write about, even if people have written about it before, in such a way that your thoughts or your ideas about that topic is unique. It is not, a replica of what somebody has already written. So two people can write a book about 5 ways to become successful, but the two books would not be the same because another person or you could write in such a way that you don't just write everything the other person has written. Of course, I don't think that there are only 5 ways to become successful. So if somebody has written a book on 5 ways to become successful, you can still write on another 5 ways to become successful. What does that mean? It means that you could take a topic and creatively, write about it in such a way that it is not a repetition of another person's work. And it is not a word for word, it is not a verbatim, quotation of another person. So you have to be original. As an author, your originality will give uniqueness to your book and to your work. So that when somebody holds your book, they could tell this book was written by this person, because they know your style of writing. Your style of writing is unique to you. Okay? So now, why should we avoid plagiarism? I'm going to give you about 6 reasons why you shouldn't plagiarize. The first thing you need to know, the first reason you shouldn't plagiarize is that plagiarism is stealing. Plagiarism is stealing. If you go check the origin of the word plagiarize or plagiarism, you would find that the word means to kidnap. So when you kidnap a child or you take something forcefully that is not yours, or you steal something. So when you plagiarize, you are actually stealing another author's idea. Maybe you go on the internet, you see a beautiful article about the topic you want to write, about in your book. And then you just copy everything and you put it in your book without referencing the source, without telling people that you actually got this article or this part of your book from an article. What you have done is that you have stolen that part of your book. So when people read the book and they're like, wow, what an intelligent author. But then only you know that you are not that intelligent because the ideas there are not yours. They are stolen ideas or stolen thoughts from other people. So you should avoid plagiarism because it is stealing. Secondly, plagiarism is an ethical issue. So it is ethically wrong for you to copy another person's work and not, give credit to them for it and pretend as if it was all your ideas. When you do that, you are committing an ethical offense, which I think you shouldn't do. If you are an author, you don't want to be the kind of author that is ethically wrong. Now, I want you to know that you could write a very beautiful book, but if the information in that book was stolen or it was plagiarized information, no publisher would publish such books. Because, for example, if you want to publish your book on Amazon, Amazon will run a plagiarism check on your book. And if they find any information that was copied from somewhere else without reference, they will not publish your book. So no publisher wants to publish a plagiarized work. That is why I would like for you to avoid plagiarism as much as you can. Avoid it. Now, another reason you should not plagiarize is that plagiarism shows that you are not creative. It shows that you cannot think creatively. You cannot generate ideas by yourself. It shows that if you saw something on the internet, you don't know how to creatively write that thing in such a way that people would not know that you stole somebody else's idea or that the idea was not your original idea. So plagiarism shows that you are not creative at all. Even though people would read your book and they would think, oh, what a creative author. But if your book is a plagiarized version of another person's book, then it means that you are not creative at all. And the fourth thing is, like I said earlier, plagiarism deprives you of your originality. So you are being someone else instead of being yourself, instead of writing your own thoughts, your own ideas. You just copy another person's work because you are maybe too lazy to think or to look for ways to rewrite in such a way that it sounds like you, right? So you lose your originality when you plagiarize. Because when I'm reading your book, I'm hearing another person's voice because that was not your original thoughts or your original ideas. So you want to be original in your writing. You want to be unique in your writing. So don't plagiarize. The fifth thing you need to know is that plagiarism shows that you do not really know the subject you claim to know. Now, for you to want to write a book about 5 ways to become successful, it means that you actually know 5 ways to become successful. So if you know 5 ways to become successful, why should you copy another person's 5 ways to become successful and put in your book and pretend as if it was your idea? So when you plagiarize, it shows that you don't really know what you claim to know. You want to write 5 ways to build a happy home, to build a happy marriage. If you really know 5 ways to build a happy marriage, you don't need to copy another person's, work. You need to state your own work, your own 5 ways that you have probably, practiced in your own marriage. Now, the last thing that I think is the reason you shouldn't plagiarize is it reveals your lack of integrity. It shows that you lack integrity because you are going to publish a book in your name with other people's ideas without crediting them, without referencing them, so that everybody would think that this was your thought and your idea, that you were that brilliant. Yes. So that is lack of integrity. If you are a person of integrity, you don't want to plagiarize. So how do we avoid plagiarism? That is the question. Now, you know that plagiarism is wrong. It is stealing. It is ethically wrong. It deprives you of your originality, and it shows to the whole world that you lack creativity, right? And that you are ignorant about what you claim to know. But how do you now avoid plagiarism? Well, to avoid plagiarism, I'm going to give you 5 ways to avoid plagiarism as you write. 1, whenever you copy something from anywhere, like I said before, you are going to read other people's work. So if you read my work, for example, and you find something interesting that you want to include in your book, give reference to me. So you can copy, but make sure you give reference or show the source of your information. If you copied something from an article on the internet or from a journal or from a textbook or from an encyclopedia, you should put the reference there. Let people know that this particular part of your book was copied from, a source. So that's the first thing you need to do. Now, the second thing you need to do is that you can use quotes and quotation marks. Now, if you are writing a book and you want to state something that somebody else has already said before, what you do is that you quote that person. You don't write the same statement that somebody has written before or that somebody is known for, and then put it in your book as if it's your thoughts or your quotes. No, don't do that. What you do is you can copy that same thing, write that same thing in your book, but put a quote. Let it be a quote. Put a quotation mark and put the name of the author of the quote. For example, if let's say Colin Powell has a quote that says, "A dream does not become reality through magic. It takes hard work, determination, and perseverance." If you love that idea, that statement, and you want to include it in your book, do it. But put quotation marks and put under Colin Powell, so people would know that that is a quote from Colin Powell. Now, that is one way to write a quote. You just copy the quote verbatim. You don't edit the quote. You don't change it. And then you put quotation marks and you put the name of the author under it. So that is, you are using quotes to avoid plagiarism. Another way you could say the same thing without maybe using quotation marks, you could say something like, according to Colin Powell, a dream does not become reality through magic, and then you finish the quote, right? Or maybe you are writing a book about dreams and why people should work hard or why people should persevere, while waiting for their dreams. You could give your explanation and then say something like, that is why I agree with Colin Powell when he said that dreams will not become reality through magic, but blah, 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 and so on. Yes. So what have you done? You've referenced or you've quoted Colin Powell. by saying that that is why I agree with Colin Powell when he said, okay, so there are several ways to do that. Or you could say, for example, Colin Powell was not totally wrong when he said blah, 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 and blah. So just like that, that is how you use quotes to avoid plagiarism. Now, even if you copy the story, if you copy the story from the internet, maybe somebody wrote a story about a man who had a divorce with his wife, and then you copy that story from the internet and put it in your book. Also use a reference, put a reference, mention where you got that story from. Okay, now that is back to number one. So let's go to number three. Now, number three is learn to rephrase or paraphrase with reference. Now, I said before that you shouldn't just copy word for word. If you copy somebody verbatim, what you're doing is that you are showing that you don't know how to paraphrase. Now, it is true you don't want people to know, for example, that you copied something word for word. Yes, but um, you must learn to paraphrase if you don't want people to know that you copy something word for word. So what should you do? You saw a beautiful idea on the internet, a beautiful story on the internet, or from some a textbook or journal or something, and you want to include it in your own book. You don't have to write everything word for word. You can write the same thing, but in a different way. So you could paraphrase it. You could paraphrase it. And when you paraphrase it, you still need to put the the link of where you got that story from. Even though you have written the story in your own words, you have used synonyms to replace the words that the original author used. You still need to put links and put a reference of where you got that story from. Now, sometimes if you don't want to reference people, you must make sure that that story that you are writing is your original story. What does that mean? It means that you were the first person to write about that story. Or if you don't want to paraphrase, you don't want to copy another person and give them, the credit, create your own story. Now, how do you create your own story? Maybe you read a story about a divorce on the internet. You can create your own story of divorce, an imaginary story, a hypothetical situation, something that didn't really happen. You could just give a name that, oh, Mr. A got married to Mr. B, and this and that happened, and they fought and they had a divorce and they had a child. Anything. You can create your own story. Nobody knows if the story you are telling in your book is real or it was just something that you imagined. But the idea is that you should learn to be creative. If you don't want to paraphrase, then you must learn to create your own stories. Now, if you don't want to create your own stories, then paraphrase other people's stories and give them the credit. Let people know that this story was copied from this site or from that encyclopedia. Okay. Then the fourth thing you need to do to avoid plagiarism, you must create your own novel ideas. You must create your own novel ideas. Now, what does that mean? Even though somebody has written about divorce before, but I don't believe that one person can write about everything there is to know or there is to write about divorce. So it's possible you read a book about divorce, but I don't think everything in that book is everything that needs to be known about divorce. So that is why you now create your own novel ideas. Somebody gave 5 ways to avoid divorce. You can give 10 ways to avoid divorce. You can give 20 ways to avoid divorce. Or you can actually give 5 ways, but different 5 ways from the one somebody has written before. Or you could even write about the same 5 ways somebody has written before on how to avoid divorce, but you expand on the ideas. You write more than what the original author, wrote in his book. You look at each of those ideas and see how you can expand them, bring in something that the other author did not include in his book. So when you do that, you are not copying word for word, you're not copying that author, you are creating your own ideas from what you've read from his book. So that is how you avoid plagiarism. And lastly, you can use plagiarism checker. On the internet, you will find plagiarism checker. When you finish writing and you are sure that you have done all your references, your citations, you've put the links of where you copied whatever from, and you've mentioned the names of the people that you whose quotes you used in the book, you still need to do a plagiarism check to be sure that you didn't forget to reference anything. Because if you forget to reference anything, nobody is going to publish your book. No publisher would publish your book if they find out by themselves that you forgot to reference, some information in your book. Okay, so you can use the plagiarism checker. Some of them you would find on the internet. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to show you some books. Let's see how we can apply the rules that we have. How we can apply the rules that we have on that on what I just taught you. Now So I'm going to show you in this book how to use quotes. Okay, how to use quotes and how to avoid plagiarism. Now let's look at this is chapter 1. Let's see if we would get a quote from here. So I'll show you how you can use the quotes to avoid plagiarism. Good. So here you find this quote by Thomas Edward Lawrence. Now, I was writing here about dreams. Okay, I'm talking about daydreaming, daydreamers, and the dreamers of day. And Thomas Edward Lawrence had a quote about dreams. So what did I do? I copied his quote and I put his name here, Thomas Edward Lawrence. So when you are reading this book, you would know that this quote, this idea here, is not mine. It is somebody's idea that I used to buttress my own idea, to buttress the point I was making in that paragraph or in that section of the book. So this is how you use a quote. You must put the name of the person who owns the quote under it. Then again, let me show you how another way. Here you see another quote by Harriet Tubman. Okay, you see I put her name here to show that this quote belongs to her. Now, if you go down, you would see other quotes. Let's go to chapter 2. Here, this is a quote by Zig Ziglar. Difficult roads often lead to beautiful destination. The best is yet to come. So again, I use Zig Ziglar's quote to explain the point I was trying to make in this section. So that is how you use quotes to avoid plagiarism and you reference other people. Then let me try to show you, imagine that you got a story. Imagine that you got a story from the internet and you included the story in your book. You want to put a reference. You want people to know that this story, it was not your original idea. You copied it from somewhere. Now look at this book. In this book, you see this superscript here. This superscript 1. It actually shows that the idea here, this story here, was copied from the internet. And this one you see here, this superscript one, shows you the link or the site where this story was gotten from. So this author had to put that superscript there to show you that this story is not his original story. He copied it from somewhere. But here you see just one. So what does this one mean? This one actually represents a link, which is the reference to the source where the story came from. If you go to the end of the book and go to chapter 1 where the story is, you will see this one. So this one here, let me show you what this one means. You go to the last page of the book, you will find the reference. Let me see if the reference is here. Yeah, so this is the reference. So here you see all the links of references where this author copied these things from. Yeah. So this one, that's one you saw before, that superscript you saw is this link. So this is the link. So it is a proof that the idea the author represented in that place was not his original idea. He copied it. And so you could see a lot of links here. Now, as an author and a writer, you must reference other people because, like I said, whatever you are going to write, people have written about it before. So you need their idea to be able to expand and to write your own book. But you must give credit to them by having, them referenced in your book. So this is how to do the reference. Okay, so you must reference people. Any story you get, you must let other people know that it was not yours, that you copied it from somewhere. So that is how you avoid plagiarism. That is how you avoid plagiarism. So I have shown you how to, for example, look at the story of Benjamin Franklin here. Yes. Now, if you go down at the end of this story, you should see a link or a reference. So you see the superscript here. This superscript is a proof that this Benjamin Franklin story was gotten from somewhere. So that is why this link, superscript number 2, is here. That is how you reference. Now, if I'm reading this book about Benjamin Franklin, I see an idea or a story and information about Benjamin Franklin. If I don't see this superscript here, I might conclude that the author was the one writing from his head the story of Benjamin Franklin. But remember that this superscript shows you that he copied this either word for word from his site, or he paraphrased it and still put the link there, which was what I taught you to do. Paraphrase wherever you got the story of Benjamin Franklin from, but still, uh, you know, mention, put the link, put the reference there. Let people know that even though you paraphrase it, but it was not you're not the one who created the story originally. Okay. I will advise you not to reference Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is not a reliable source of information. So you could reference journals, you could reference encyclopedias, you could reference textbooks, you could reference people, but not Wikipedia because Wikipedia is not a reliable source of information. Yes, so I think that with these, I could bring this lecture to a close. Now you know what plagiarism is and why you should not plagiarize, and also how to avoid plagiarism. How to avoid plagiarism. So I believe that if you go through this video, watch this video again, you'll be able to write your own book without having to steal people's ideas and not reference them. Like I said before, you will always need other people's ideas, You need the knowledge of other people, but you must give them credit for it. I don't think you would feel good if you wrote a book and then somebody just copied a part of your book and included in their own book without giving you the credits, without mentioning that they got the idea from you. You won't feel good about it. In the same way, you don't want to plagiarize other people's work because the people you are plagiarizing would not feel good if they discover that you stole part of their work and claim that it was yours. So that is it. I hope that this lesson was useful and that you learned something from it. Try as much as possible to be original, to be unique, and to be creative in your writing. I think that will be the end of the lecture today. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.